so.
Why is it board? You want to check Sheila for us? Maybe they took a bathroom break because they had more time. Why is it? Oh, I spelled my name wrong. Tom, I'm having trouble too.
Like this birthday, the Tom refers to his birthday. I'm a win. You're what? You're a win. It's too spicy for you?
Are you in?
Oh, well, you have, right, I spelled my name wrong. Some of it is not.
Hey, Tom, you in?
Yeah.
We're just, Sheila went down to check.
What are the pool?
Or you?
Yeah, no, I guess that's a problem. So I mean,
Thank you.
It's hard to keep you all waiting. Glad you're here.
I'm a robot.
I want to know what happened. Be a spectator. Never a spectator. This is not a spectator sport.
Oh, isn't an issue up here?
Save your sanity. That'll make it so. This would be a good day for a birthday. 19. Oh, yeah. But it's not my birthday.
Good evening and welcome to the Thursday, September 19th, regular meeting of the Novi Community School District Board of Education. Thank you for being with us tonight. If you would all, oh no. I need a roll call vote, please, Mr. Mena.
Trustee Cook? Here. Trustee Hood?
Yes.
Trustee Mena is here. Trustee Murphy?
Yes.
Trustee Roney?
Here.
Trustee Ruskin?
Here.
Trustee Smith?
Here.
Fantastic. Thank you all for coming tonight. If you would please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have Dr. Weber with us this evening since Dr. Matthews is attending a conference as the Michigan Association of School Superintendent President.
Correct.
So thank you for filling in his absence. I would entertain a motion, please, to approve the agenda this evening.
I move to approve tonight's agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Support. It's been moved by Mr. Smith, supported by Dr. Ruskin. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. First on our agenda, we have the M-STEP report. I believe that is you, Dr. Weber.
Right on, and it really is a team that I'm really proud to introduce here in a moment. Today we had our inter-school council meeting, which is PTO presidents, band boosters, athletic boosters, and it was a very poignant moment today and tonight as opposed to 2010 and the first time I met with that group. And what I heard from parents at that particular meeting were concerns arising out of the fact that their students were having different experiences at different elementary schools. That they were wondering why is it, for instance, that one third grade class in one building was doing a different type of curriculum than a class in another third grade building. Now, flashback 10 years later, and what we're about to see tonight really is, much of it was born out of that very moment, that very meeting, when parents were saying to us that they were hoping for a more consistent approach. So before we actually start, if I could please have members of my team up to the podium. Thank you very much. I'd like to introduce some really fantastic people that you may hear me mentioning at board meetings. This is the first time that I've had my people, if you will, up here together. And I am absolutely delighted because the real hard work that goes into helping us become a system, much of it is led by these folks, the principals and the teachers as well, obviously. People that you won't see up here in the past, Nick Kalakailo and Alice Smith, who are also part of the office. But I'd like to introduce Mr. Jeff Dinkelman, who's our Director of Student Growth and Accountability. Ms. Darby Hoppenstedt, Director of Student Support Services. Shaylee Patel, Director of Special Education and Programs. Ms. Adva Ringel, Supervisor of English Language Programs. And Stacy Theophilus, Supervisor of Special Education and Programs. So right now, Mr. Dinkelman is going to go ahead and begin this presentation, taking you through the M-STEP. If there are any questions at all, of course, please let Ms. Murphy know, and she'll go ahead and indicate to any of the presenters. We look forward to sharing something that we should all be very, very proud of.
Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
So we want to go through just a few things tonight. This is the 2019 M-STEP results. We just received these drafts actually this afternoon from Oakland Schools. Thank you, Sheila. She's also a former member of the office back in.
That's right.
Sheila Holler. She
She served a 5-year tour with Dr. Weber. She got to get out.
Couldn't get out fast enough. So this is English, language arts, mathematics, and social studies. And what this is just from the 2019 M-STEP results. The blue bar is Novi, the red bar is Oakland Schools, and the green bar is the state. As you can see, as you go 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th, we do very, very, very well in Novi. We have a lot to be proud of. And one thing I do want to point out is that in years past, you would have saw an 8th grade bar, but if you remember last year, we gave the PSAT 8, the state moved to a PSAT 8, so we don't have English language arts or mathematics recorded in the same way as we did in the past. But as we look at ourselves in comparison to the other schools in Oakland County as well as the state of Michigan, there's a lot there that we can be proud of. And that's from the teachers, the students, the parents, the community members, the Board of Education, the administrators, district and school. This is basically the same graph, okay, but just in a line graph form. And what I want you to look at, and so the ups and downs of the graph as it goes from side to side, you can notice that for the most part, especially, I'll point out the mathematics piece of it. The dips that we might see in Novi as it goes from 79 to 78 to 73 and then back up. The dips that we see are the same ones that the state and the county see. So, not to get too mathy, but when we talk about slopes of lines and things of that nature, there's a lot of similarity there. So, we do see some rises, say from 5th grade to 6th grade in ELA. The state and the county both drop, but yet we see an increase when we look at our 5th and 6th grade. And so there's this basically shows that one, we're not a whole lot different as far as our rises and falls between the county and the state, but there are spots that we can see that we're rising when others are possibly not. So this is a longitudinal record from 2015 to 2019 from the M-STEP. And again, it's Novi in the blue, Oakland Schools in the red, and then the state of Michigan in the green. This shows our long-standing record of doing very, very well. And this, we can attribute this to a lot of different things, but I think it just goes back to a consistent effort, starting with the board table, moving down to Dr. Matthews and Dr. Weber in cabinet and Office of Academics, the directors and supervisors that might be there. But most certainly the teachers who get after it every single day with our students themselves, and the families that support them. This is a wonderful place to be, a wonderful place to work, and the hard work that our students and teachers put in is demonstrated through graphs like this. So this is mathematics, ELA, and this would be your social studies. Social studies is not one that's given every year, so we get 5th grade, 8th grade, and 11th grade. So this begins to get into when we look at all of the other districts in Oakland County. And so this is grades 3 through 7 combined for M-STEP scores, sorted by the overall ELA score. See the Novi's 4th all the way towards the right. So we are one of the higher achievers in the county, and we continue to be. This is not a new place for us to sit, and so this is we've kind of hovered in that right-hand corner for many, many years. If you turn that same data around and sort of by math.
Jeff, you did say we were 4th, but we're 4th from the right, but we're really 1st, I think. So just wanted to clarify that. Right? We're the highest, so we're 76. There's nobody as high as for math.
So if you look at, so right now, this one that I have right here, which says it's at the top, it says sorted by ELA.
Yeah.
So that is the blue bar,
Oh.
but you're just one step ahead of me, because
Okay.
we go to the next graph where it's sorted by math, now it's sorted by
Gotcha.
the red bar,
Okay.
which does put us at the top of the county.
Okay,
But
thank
I
you.
appreciate your fierce advocacy.
Thank you.
That's
next year.
I thought you were trying to put me in a position where, oh, yes.
Oh, sorry.
of course, we're first, we're number one.
Next year, we will be number one. Sorry, got
Yes,
you.
no. It's the same information, just one is sorted by the ELA score and one is sorted
Okay.
by the math score. And so, again, lots to be proud of. This is our 3 through 8 step scores.
Okay. Do you want to take a pause?
Yeah,
Mr.
before,
Cook has a
but
question.
before you go too much further,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Dinkelman, you know, the M-STEP results for 2015 to 2019 for math and ELA, there's a lot of downward trends. And I know you just got this data today. You said that, have you done any analysis? Is there a statistical difference between the years on ours, even though there's a downward trend on it?
Are you speaking to this specific graph?
Yes, yes. There's a downward trend on everybody's, but I'm more concerned about Novi's.
We have not dug very deep into this, but that is certainly something that we could take a look at. I think many times we do kind of look at the overall scope of it in the sense of, as you just said, that it looks like I look at the 7th grade scores, there seems to be a downward trajectory for both the county and the state.
But is it enough to be a statistical difference in that? That's...
Right, and that's something that we certainly should certainly look into, but we have not as of yet.
Okay.
Yes, Mrs. Hood.
I have a question about that same graph, for that same page. Is it correct to consider that in 3rd grade, the 2015 score, those group of kids are the 2016 score in 4th grade and the 2017 score in 5th grade? Are those the same set of students going through?
Generally speaking, those are the same cohort of students. So there's going to be some pluses and minuses because this is overall proficiency. It's not just looking at the cohort who tested in all of those years. It's the overall district score, but generally speaking, it's the same. I can't give you a percentage.
Okay.
But way more than the majority are the same ones. Most of our students come to us and stay.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Anything else on this one or anything else until now?
No,
And now we're going to be in the lovely world of PSAT and SAT. So, as I said before, PSAT 8 was new this year. So if you look at this graph for ERW, stands for English Reading and Writing. So, and then math. And so these are the, instead of just being percent who are proficient or advanced, this now becomes the percent of those who are college and career ready. That's just a measurement that the PSAT and the SAT uses. And so again, back to the blue is Novi, the red is Oakland, LEAs, and state of Michigan is green. Our scores rise above the other entities and have for a long, long time. And if you think about it each and every year, we just announced it in the last couple of days, the National Merit Scholarships. This coincides, those numbers that we get each and every year coincide with the numbers that we get overall with these scores as well. So,
And for context for board members, is a former high school principal in a district that we border. So 3 years of being a high school principal there, I had 0 national merit semifinalists. This year we had 27 at our high school. Last year, I believe, Jeff, we had 38, 37?
34 last year, maybe 38 or 37 the year before that. I could be getting my years
Amazing.
mixed up, but
Amazing.
it was quite amazing. So, again, so this is the longitudinal piece, and so things are going very, very well for us. Same type of graph as we saw with the M-STEP, but now this is the county PSAT 8, 9, and 10, and the SAT combined. Again, this one is sorted by the ERW, so it's the blue line. Novi is third down in the corner. Excuse me. And then if you flip-flop the sorting to the math, Novi is there second. I do want to take a second in the Oakland Schools piece that is in the corner, that is at the 92 and 94. That is a public school. That's the International Academy. So it is a public school, but it's a different type of public school.
Right.
And so when you see open schools there, if you look on that graph, there's two things for open schools. One says open schools in the lower right-hand corner, and then it says open LEAs in the middle, which is the county average. And so if you were to look at this, I would say the number one in the county.
Mr. Smith, did you have a question?
Sure. Mr. Dinkelman, when you get this data, are you able to sort it different ways that you want, or do you get these slides like this deck given to you, or do you just get data and then you create these decks based on the data that you get?
So these particular slides, I will say that I get from the county,
Okay.
which are massive Excel spreadsheets that have been linked to PowerPoints.
Right.
But within that data that they give us, there's quite a few other slides that they give us that sort out by student groups, be it gender, economically disadvantaged, and things of that nature. And so to be able to drill into a little bit more depth to look at those pieces. And on top of that, we have the mass data file that we get from the state that we're able to manipulate to look for different things that we might be interested in as well. So.
Can you go back 2 slides to the 16 to 19 PSAT and SAT results?
Yes, sir.
And I'm catching up on something Mr. Cook brought up. I just want to see if I'm reading the data correctly.
Yes, sir.
So I'm looking at math, and I'm looking at the 2016 PSAT 9 scores,
Okay.
and it's about 80, right?
Yes, sir.
So I know directionally some new kids come in, some kids leave. I get that. But if I look at PSAT 10 for 2017, that number drops from 2016. So, and then it does it again for 2018.
For the SAT.
So, right, so I'm just, if I'm reading that correctly, then that group of kids, although our scores are awesome, right, we're number one, I get all that, but that group of kids, it seems like over those 3 years, scored progressively lower, at least on the math portion of the PSAT.
So you're right in seeing that. And one thing, so there's a couple things.
Yeah, so help me understand.
So the PSAT 8 is scored differently than the PSAT 9, which is scored differently than the 10, which is scored differently than the SAT. The ability to become college and career readiness, that window shrinks as you go up each level. And so it gets tougher.
So although the data might lead someone to conclude that that group of kids is decreasing, you can't really say that because the scores and the way the
Right.
tests are all different. Is there a way, do you think, that we could actually see that in the data? Like I would hope that our kids through 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th are constantly improving, right?
And so, as this test does change, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be pointing in that direction, that we're trying to find ways to help our students continue to grow and have those numbers increase as they go from one grade level to another. And so,
Right.
and
Well, you
those-
guys would know better than us.
Right, and those are the types of things that, as we have the students who are on the, I don't want to say on the bubble, but those students who, from the 2016 PSAT 9, so 80% of those students were college career ready.
Right.
Of that 80%, there was a percentage somewhere that just either barely or somehow got over the line to be college and career ready. We want to make sure that we equip our students and our teachers with solid tier 1 strategies to make sure that those students continue to make growth from one year to the next, that they're prepared not just to take the PSAT 10 or PSAT or SAT 11, but that they're ready to make that transition into that career or college course that they're going to be going into.
So might it be correct to say that even though the 2016 class and 2017 had a lower score average, that they still possibly could have been quote-unquote better students that year? It was just the test was either more difficult or...
Right, and again, not to, because Mr. Cook's right, we can't use that as an excuse. If we look at the how the state and the Oakland County, their scores also follow the same pattern, that from PSAT 9 to PSAT 10 to SAT 11, you see a decline in college and career readiness. Well, we're not going to rest on it. We're not going to say, well, everybody else is doing it. But it's something that we need to continue to look for and find ways to combat and make sure that we're attending to that. And even more so, as you both have asked, what are the reasons behind it and how can we, is it as you said, Mr. Cook, is this a statistically significant thing that we're seeing, or is this just how the data falls? And so it might, if we can begin to look at similar schools, school districts to us, be it through economic disadvantage or achievement growth pieces like that, how do we compare against those pieces as well?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think, Jeff, behind IA, I believe we're the #1 SAT high school score in the entire state.
I believe we are, yes. And serving as a member of this staff, not only with the Office of Academics, but serving with teachers like Ms. Burnside here and all the wonderful teachers we have, the scores that we get, and to go on to different meetings that I have the privilege of representing Novi in, it's a wonderful thing to have people come up to us and say, hey, I saw that this is going on, I saw your guys' name in the paper, or sitting at a meeting where these scores come out, and everybody just kind of goes and looks for me, and I'm like, so it's a real privilege to serve with people in this district, and it's a true pleasure to see our kids do all the things that they do, because ultimately, it's the students who walk through our doors every day that make the biggest difference in the world. So, this is kind of my part. Is there any other questions for me as far as the data part goes? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. So as we transition to our next set of presenters and presentations, I'd just like you to take a look at the monument that's there and has actually been in place for 9 years now. So what does all of this mean? And it really means we've stayed the course. I'd mentioned a number of board meetings ago that in our first year here in 2010, or at least my first year, we'd actually been cited for 27 violations in the Title I audit from the state of Michigan, 6 of which saying that we did not have a clearly aligned or articulated curriculum. It was really incredibly critical that we aligned our curriculum first, and really the pivot we made then was the fact that rather than hiring curriculum coordinators, we invested in our teachers. So we built a CAL leadership model, or content area leader model, where teachers K through 12, not just high school department leaders, actually led the curriculum redesign efforts and the curriculum implementation efforts. So when we look at the kind of success that we've had, and it's not success just this year, but over the past 4 to 5 years, really the staying your course and being steady, I would attribute to that, as well as the teachers being deeply involved in building and developing and implementing the curriculum. It's always student-centered. If you look at the monument, the 2 arrows go towards growth and achievement, and I am proud to say that I serve beside people not only out there but around this table who that is what it all comes down to. A very simple question that our team asks ourselves, is it good for kids? If it's good for kids, we go there no matter what the adult inconvenience may be. We also have a deep community approach to education. We have 45 languages spoken in the homes of our district. Before the meeting tonight, board member Roney had shared with me that she had made a visit down to the Indian Temple. It's about a mile from here. It is truly, Novi is a place that people move to because they believe in education, they believe in their families and their kids. And that's no different than it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago, but we really see that more and more when we talk to families and the communities are involved. The support for our students, and this is what I'm really, really proud of you to all here tonight, our English language learners. Miss Advaringle will be coming up in a moment, and she replaced Alice Smith, and Adva has brought a really great set of eyes to what we've done, is already making adjustments in some really positive ways, and I think it's really going to be a surprise to some of our longtime community members how much Novi and the demographic of Novi has really shifted in just the past 5 to 10 years, and what that means for us as educators and an educational institution. As far as MTSS and the multi-system of support, that is one thing that we've talked about before. Ms. Hoppenstedt is gonna see it in her presentation, the pride she has in this. When we look at our K through 12 system of supporting students who do not have IEPs, it is, I would put it up against anybody in the state. And you'd be hard pressed to find another district can replicate it in the country. When we look at the kind of supports that she will share with you tonight, maybe some of your own children have benefited from these supports, or your neighbor's children have benefited from these supports. Finally, special education. Ms. Shaylee Patel and Stacy Theophilus will be here tonight to speak to us about that, our students with IEPs. In the level of support we provide students with IEPs, and I will argue this is what it should be across the state. We spend about $88,000 per year per student with an IEP. And that is a tremendous amount of money, sure. When we think about our FTE for students, about $8,800 this minute. However, I would argue that every single student with an IEP in this state deserves that level of service. And I know that Ms. Patel and Ms. Theophilus will be really proud to show you that that money has been turned into real educational benefits for our students. And finally, if we don't support our educators, if we don't support our principals and our teachers, none of this matters. So you look at the professional development opportunities that we offer, the construction of these opportunities, the vetting of these opportunities. Today we had teachers engaged in writing pathways. I spoke to a third grade teacher this morning, and I said, just in the past couple weeks, have you seen a difference since the writing pathways from students who received this last year as second graders? And she said, absolutely. She can already tell that the PD that we did last year and the hard work the teachers are doing are making a measurable impact in the students that are coming to her. Awesome. And then high quality resources and materials, and this is really the Board of Education in the community. Without the Board of Education or our community supporting this, there is no way that we can have Jill, for instance, help us implement a next generation science program that is the absolute envy of people in the state, where our elementary students are getting great science experiences 4 to 5 times a week, but it's not cheap. We look at how much money we spent implementing that over the past years. That wouldn't have happened if you all wouldn't have signed off on it and wouldn't have been out there being advocates in the community for the good work that we're doing. So I hope that what you see with obviously an upcoming bond in the things that you hear tonight, that these are the real stories you can share with community members when they wonder, you know, what is our district doing for my student or my neighbor? That you're going to be able to share these things with your neighbors and with the people who stop you at Kroger when you're trying to buy a head of lettuce because you're a board member, and you're able to have that real conversation. So it's now my distinct pleasure to introduce Miss Adva Ringel. And Miss Ringel is going to take us into the land of our English language learners. So Miss Ringel, welcome for your first board presentation. We hope that this is many years here with us. Been very impressed with your work with us in less than a year, and I can't wait for you to enlighten us. Thanks.
Thank you so much for having me here. So I'm going to start by talking about the English Language Development Program in terms of our latest task force. Every year, basically from February to March, we give the WIDA Access English Proficiency Assessment. These are the latest scores that we received this year. And as you can see, our mean proficiency level is significantly higher than the statewide mean proficiency level. And I do want to say, however, that this year our mean proficiency level actually went down a little bit. Last year, or in spring 2018, our score was 4.2, and we have dropped to 4.1. It's not enough for us to really tell the difference. But it is happening, and I'll talk a little bit about the demographic change that we're seeing in the district.
And Ms. Ringel, could you educate the board on what WIDA is?
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
So WIDA Access is a proficiency test. Students take a test that takes about 4 hours. It tests the 4 language domains: speaking, listening, reading, and writing. And it's on a scale of 1 to 6. 1 being the lowest, 6 being the highest. When you're a student who is at proficiency level 1 or 2, you actually don't know English. You don't know social English yet. You're just developing it. When you reach proficiency levels 3 and 4, you're developing your academic English. When you reach proficiency level 4.5 and up, you are actually ready to start exiting the English language program. So, as you can see, 42% of our students are actually considered proficient.
42% of those in the ELA program.
Yeah, in the English language program. So this graph just shows a little bit about the changes in demographics that we're seeing in the district. And this is plotted over from 2014 to 2019. And as you can see, we are actually starting to get a lot more students who are coming in at that lower proficiency level. That would be newcomers, students who are new to the country, essentially. They're just coming in with very basic English, and we're building up their skills.
Any questions from the board or observations that you may have on this yourselves?
Clear, I'm sure people would be interested in what's going on at Parkview.
Parkview is getting a lot of students. Usually, last year we saw after our WIDA season, so at the end of March, The new school year in Japan started, and we got a tremendous amount of kindergartners coming into our program.
So, is it my understanding then that the Parkview area of our district is a magnet for non-English speaking families then?
I would say, as well as Village Oaks, which is also growing quite a lot.
And for the community, serving our English language learners is a huge privilege, but it also comes with a real financial cost. So for instance, if we look at Parkview Adva, I believe you have 2.5 teachers there who are dedicated to teaching our English language learners. So we think about state budgeting and we think of those pieces. These are all additional costs that a district like Novi would have, as opposed to a district that didn't have as high a number of English language learners.
And especially when we consider that we are starting to see more English language learners at a lower proficiency level, which require a lot more direct support from teachers.
So really, this is a huge thing for the board to note. As we look at the future and we look at cost and we look at budget and things that you are all going to be faced with, something to keep our eye on for you is the fact that increased need for funds in that area.
Okay. Do you have another question, Mr. Matt?
Yeah, Dr. Weber, then, could you tell me then, based on what I'm seeing here, is this causing any equity disparities
Sure.
currently between elementary schools then?
So that's the piece. So for instance, we have 2.5 staff members just dedicated to this at Parkview. However, at Orchard Hills, it would be 1. So as a board, what Dr. Kinzer has done in working with Adva, Alice, Dr. Matthews, as well as Ms. Minnick, is to make sure we're allocating additional staff members to support that. So there's not an issue of equity within that. So while Parkview may have 2.5 times the amount of staff dedicated to that, there's a reason for it because of the numbers.
And VO as well, staff member this year to support your increase in numbers.
So I guess my question though is do we have enough staff there now so that we don't have an equity issue? Meaning, do we have enough staff to take care of the growth in the ELA population at Parkview so it doesn't negatively impact those kids who aren't ELA kids?
And I think this year I'm really looking closely at that because I can't give you an answer just yet. We're still figuring out our numbers this year. At the beginning of the school year, we have 30 days to test all the English language learners who join our district. And after that period of time, we can really tell what our true numbers are for this year. And moving forward, we're going to try to see if we need to increase FTE.
So I think part of the question that you have, Mr. Mena, is are we allocating enough resources to where we don't also take away from the educational opportunities perhaps for students who are non-English language learners? Is that correct? Okay. So I would say in looking at our asset allocations right now that we're definitely hedging to make sure we provide that equity of opportunity for our students in those spaces. But again, with this influx, we're going to have to revisit it.
Okay. You ready to move on? Any other questions before we move on? Okay, thank you.
So I just wanted to share a little bit about our current numbers. And again, these numbers are changing. That's what we have as of yesterday. So we have almost 1,300 ELs in our English language programs. Those are students who are currently in the program. They have not yet exited from services. Services would mean either support directly from an English language teacher or monitoring by an English language teacher. We also have about 600 formally ELs. Those are students who exited the program in the last 4 years. We are still responsible for them for the next 4 years.
Mr. Cook has.
I just want to put that growth in the growth of our English language learners into perspective because I do believe 2 years ago we were under 800 and now we're better than 50% higher than that.
Right.
So it is a tremendous growth in these English language learners. Your graphs have been confusing to me. The raw data's nice, because from what I see on these, we're seeing more kids come in, but it's hard to tell, especially off this first graph, what's going on, because Village Oaks is declining and everything else, but it's for us to be a magnet for non-English speaking people. I just think that's amazing.
And really, I think, Paul, one of the things that I've shared with the staff at Novi Meadows, I believe in the beginning of the year, could you, please share it so I don't like share it incorrectly, the numbers of English language learners at Novi Meadows.
Yeah, so actually, Novi Meadows currently has 500 English language learners out of 1,000, so they're 50% of the student body.
Wow.
Right, so Mary, how long have you lived here? How many years at Novi? Yeah.
34 years.
34 years. So this is a change that has happened very quickly, and it's like like a flywheel, right? That we've talked about in the past, where we build great programming, and that great programming attracts more and more people. But to Paul's point, it happened so fast because it was just a couple of years ago we were looking at 800, and now you look at this, and now we talk about what's happening. For instance, at Novi Meadows, where you're talking almost 50% of the students, and there's a Meadows teacher here who I'm sure could attest to that. I mean, you teach it, you see it. And so us making sure that we are responsive to that, but I'll go back to the budget implications and how it's important for us to keep that in mind.
Mr. Smith?
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to, and if the question would be better answered going offline with you or Dr.
Sure.
Matthews,
Sure.
just tell me. So I know that these are increasing. It's really not different than with our adult education program, where we've gone from roughly 80 to over 300 and almost 350 now.
Adult ESL. Yeah.
Adult ESL. So, but I'm not sure if I'm loving it. Do we have the data that speaks to how many of these kids that are English language learners, what's the average length of time that they're in our district?
So I
Like,
think, from a conversation, from the comment that was just made, I would say that it's something that is very advantageous to our district, in the sense that, if we're going to go to a blunt bottom line piece, because of state funding, our economic health as a district is almost 100% incumbent on how many additional students we have. So that we have programs that attract students is a net gain. As far as length of time, Tom, that's changing as well. It used to be that our younger Japanese population would be here for 3 or 4 years.
Right.
They're here working for Nissan or Honda or something.
Right.
But now that shift is also occurring, where we're actually having families who are moving in and staying, especially from the Indian population.
Well, I see that. So that
in
was
this
going to
current-
be my follow-up. Is from coaching Little League baseball. You know, you'd get a Japanese player on your team, and it was great. You know, if the game didn't happen on a Saturday morning, because, you know, they were at the Japanese school, which we have, as we all know, the second largest Japanese school in the country. So I get all that, but I also sit on the stage during our honors convocation, and I watch those kids come across. I'm in the high school in the classroom listening to DECA presentations, and those kids are amazing. And then I see the data of how our population has changed really in the last 7 to 10 years. And one group of students is down 1,000, and another group of students is up 1,000. So I see that reflecting in the classroom, but I don't know if I see, maybe like you said, it's changing where some of these more and more of the English language students are staying. Is that a fair trend?
I would have to dig deeper into the data.
I would say yes,
Direction.
in the sense that the direction that we're trending now is attracting another dominant, Japanese was our dominant
Right.
piece, but now actually there's an evenness in our Indian population and Japanese population. What we're finding is our Indian population stays longer.
Right.
So that is
That's what you
not
see in DECA.
you are indeed seeing that occur. And the thing that I would say to be really mindful of, again, I'll say it again and again and again, and I know Jill's hearing it because this is her world and has to live it. But there are budget implications that are here for us today, and there are budget implications that will occur in the future. And actually, something that Ms. Hoppenstedt and Ms. Ringel are working on right now, and I think they're going to talk about tonight, we'll give you another, and Ms. Patel, we'll give you another example of that. And that's how do we best serve our students who are English language learners and may need MTSS and may need an IEP. Because now we've got other layers that we're working with to try to get there. The beautiful thing is this is one of the best problems we could ever have. When I look at problems and good problems, if you will, this is one of them, because we need to figure out how we best serve a population of families where 45 languages are spoken in the homes. I love that kind of problem, rather than having to shut down buildings because we don't have anyone coming.
Mr. Cook?
I guess to follow up on Mr. Smith's question, maybe phrase it a little bit differently. We've got a high percentage that are level 1 and 2. Are we keeping those kids around? Are they staying around long enough for us to get them to levels 5 and 6? Or are we just getting a new batch of kids at level 1 and 2 all the time? And do we have to, and if we're just getting that batch, do we have to reallocate our resources for those lower level learners?
Sorry, I'm writing it down so I can take a look at it. I can say though that on average, the state not requires, that's not the right word, but tells us that English language learners should exit the English language program within 5 years, or they would be considered long-term ELs. Just this year, I exited 286 English language learners from that program.
But you gained how many more?
Yeah, exactly.
More than 286, right? Yeah,
Right.
So I do want to say though, even though we're seeing a lot of growth in proficiency level 1 and 2 at the elementary level, that isn't necessarily happening across the board. So I need to keep digging into the data to give you a
One
better
last
answer.
quick one.
No, this is what
Jill,
we're here for.
do we get more money from any place for an ESL student?
Only in
Am I asking that the right way?
We're getting Title III funds.
So the federal government provides Title III funding, but also Ms. Hoppenstedt's going to speak a little bit about 31A, I believe, and ESL students actually fit in there. But this goes to what you're hearing at the state level in the debate about certain students cost more money, right?
Right.
And at first, if you don't understand that, you might think that that sounds really crass, but it's not. It's reality.
Sure.
So a student with an IEP, if a student with an IEP to serve them well, we need more money. If a student who's an English language learner requires additional teachers, cares, that student costs more money. And while that can sound a little bit off-putting to people, it's the reality of it. So that's this idea of graduated funding and funding in which different amounts of money per student's in need.
I think they did a study on that.
I'll be quiet.
I believe they did.
All right, that's okay.
So,
I think we're ready to move on.
At the moment. I'm just going to talk a little bit about kind of the plan that we have right now to support our English language learners.
It is. It's a great. Here we go. Click on this.
I can't.
So we can all see it. If you guys could please click on the yellow button. Also, if you can't get into there, Ms. Ringel has provided a hard copy in your yellow folder. So you can also get that hard copy out.
Is that a work in progress?
We can go off the hard copy, or do you have a hard copy with you?
Yes, I do.
So we all have it electronically up. I do, and we also have this here.
So just to explain a little bit about what we're doing to make sure that we are meeting both the federal and state requirements for English language learners and attending to some of the changes that we are seeing in the needs of our students. To that end, my team and I developed a mission statement, and it is to provide every EL access to equitable, high-quality content and language learning, delivering an impactful and inclusive educational experience. And that goes off directly from the district strategic belief statement. To that end, we've divided our work to focus on instruction and instructional time, services and programming, and community engagement. And in particular, I'd like to highlight changes in the way that we deliver services. We're moving to a model where we provide content and language instruction together instead of separately, really to align with ESSA. We're also developing a parent component, again, to go along with ESSA. Next week, on Tuesday, we have our first English language community council meeting, where we will be inviting staff members, community members, students to join us so that we can have a voice for our families so we know how to advocate for what they need. We're also developing supports for dual language learners. Those are students who are essentially pre-K students. Last count, we have approximately 166 of them. That's somewhere in the vicinity of 50% of our student body. The state does not actually have a plan for how we should be supporting dual language learners. So it's really exciting because we get to be leaders in this field. So we will be working with other districts and hopefully the state as well to develop that. We are also working with the MTSS team to develop English language intervention for our ELs who need that extra boost in order to exit the program or just need extra language development support. And we're currently using existing staff to do that.
Thank you. Any questions, other questions around this subject?
No, I just want to say this is a great visual chart that really, kind of reminds us of strategic planning and all the things that go along with that, and appreciate that you've taken the time to organize things in that way.
Thanks
Be
for-
excited to hear more as you work through the work in progress, as things get complete. I think we'd be excited to hear more about that. I just want to, ESSA, which you mentioned, is Every Child Succeeds Act, correct?
Correct.
So that's something that came down from the federal government,
Yeah.
replace No Child Left Behind. So
Yeah.
I just kind of, I know we use a lot of acronyms. I don't know if everyone
too.
watching, or even I lose track as a board member sometimes of what all of those mean, but certainly aligning ourselves with that is probably a wise idea. So thank you. Thanks for the work.
Thanks, Adva. Next, Ms. Darby Hoppenstedt is going to speak to our multi-tiered system of supports and how we attend to our learners who need additional help.
Good evening. So we are certainly proud of our data, and we believe that there are contributing factors to the things that impact student achievement, and I'm going to be talking about some of those, as Dr. Weber said. So first is our multi-tiered system of support, and I presented on that in the past, and we are really looking to live into that tiered system to provide each learner what they need to be successful and meet students where they're at, so that we can provide intervention or enrichment if necessary. And this is our third year of really fully implementing the core components of our MTSS framework. We are incredibly fortunate to have a full continuum of math and literacy intervention services in our district. I am so proud of this, and I thank the board for their support in providing the individuals to do this work. They are highly trained specialists through certification, through literacy and math recovery. They've been trained in Orton-Gillingham, and I know Dr. Ruskin is a fan and supporter of Orton-Gillingham because it's an approach, a multisensory approach to instruction, and really gets at what students need to be successful. And oftentimes other programs that haven't worked, we find that Orton-Gillingham does work. And then our math specialists have been trained in Advantage Math Recovery, and it's a way to identify the skills that students need, and it provides instructional methods to close those gaps.
And Ms. Hoppenstedt, AVMR, or Advantage Math, is something the board's actually is going to trigger some memories in their minds, because that is part of our district improvement plan, which is also part of Dr. Matthews' goals. And I believe we are training our K-1-2 teachers in AVMR this year, correct?
Correct.
Great.
So our math specialists have even a higher level of training in AVMR. They have really the specialist training. So they will be helping to support the K-1-2 teachers for the next really 1 to 3 years. And for the intervention services, it's really about providing that intensive intervention so that we can close gaps for our students.
And I do believe, one second, there's a handout in your yellow folder for Section 31A, legislation at risk.
Correct. So the board received that. It really explains Section 31A. It's a new piece of legislation that we are working through. So last year was our first year of reporting. 31A is really intended to support our at-risk population. And so when we receive funds, we also have accountability measures, and that's great for us, because then we can really look at, well, how are we doing with the programs and services that we're providing. So for 31A, accountability is looking at proficiency in reading in grade 3, proficiency in math, grade 8, and college and career ready in 11th grade. And I'm happy to report that more than 50% of Novi Community School districts identified as at risk are proficient in reading and math. We had insufficient data for 11th grade. That's because we haven't had consecutive years of tracking those students. We will have that for you next year, and I'm certain that that will also look great. And as I sat through a special populations conference on Monday, and I looked at the list of districts across the state of Michigan, Novi is one of the only few districts that was not flagged by Michigan Department of Education for redirection of funds and programming because our students did meet that criteria. And that's really exciting. It means that really what we're doing is working. While I'd like to see the gaps close even more, obviously, but I believe that we're on the right track to get there. And because we don't have to redirect funds for other programs, we can continue the great work that we've been doing the last few years.
So another independent point of pride, when the state of Michigan recognizes very few districts with that designation that they don't have to redirect, and we are one of them, that's working. Thank you.
Another contributing factor includes a full continuum of support services. And again, I am just so proud of this continuum because you will not find a continuum that looks like this anywhere around the state of Michigan. And I know Ms. Burnside was a former elementary teacher, and I'm certain that you did not have the math and literacy support for students at the early L level, and I'm so happy to say that now we really do. So I talked about our math and literacy specialists. We have full-time social workers in each of our buildings, and the social workers provide service for special education and also general education students. We have one or more full-time ESL teachers in each of our K-4 buildings. We have 4 full-time psychologists across the district. We have instructional coaches that really provide that support to classroom teachers to hone Tier 1 instruction. And we also have speech pathologists who, and for the first time this year, full-time speech pathologists in each of our K-4 buildings. Moving on to 512. The continuum looks very similar. As you can see, 512, we do have school counselors that provide social, emotional, and academic support for our students. And then we have gen ed social work at our high school, and we have a student support specialist, or a student support coach in Lauren Neisel, who supports really the overall Tier 3 needs of our students.
Any questions for Ms. Hoppenstedt before she leaves the podium?
I'll be back.
And now Ms. Shaylee Patel and Stacy Theophilus are here to talk about how we serve our students with special needs. And really the exciting thing, I believe, in their first slide here is if you're going to start, you're going to start to the right, and then you're going to move left. So, because
Way
at
to
first
keep us on our toes.
because at first you look at it, you're like, wait a second, this is really not good for any of you. But here you go. Thank you.
Great. So when it comes to special education, I want to explain what these indicators are and where we get this information from. So IDEA, so Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, is our federal law that outlines what students who have disabilities and who meet that criteria, all of the parameters and all of those rules. And then each state takes that information and then creates its own set of rules that have to fall under IDEA. So as part of that, IDEA requires that all states have a state performance plan, as well as reports out annually on that state performance plan, which is really looking at how is the state doing when it comes to implementing IDEA, the requirements of IDEA. So with that, each state has to continually show improvement. And again, as the state needs to show improvement, they then look at the ISDs, open schools. Open schools is compiling their data from the local districts. And so this is information, again, from right to left with those dates, having to do with some of these indicators.
So as you can see, from 2011 to our current time, 2017-18, we've made significant growth in our areas of our performance indicators. And I believe in your folders you have this next slide, which is the hard copy. And this is the spring report of our state performance indicators. Give me a minute to get that out. And starting from my left, you see there's an indicator type, and there's about 14 of them. And then you have the year the data was collected. So some of this data is from 16, 17. cohort, and some of it's from 18 school years. Then there's the calculation, and then what the state target is, and then the district data, and then the target met, and then the next steps. And as you can see, this is the first time this year that we've met all of our targets, except there's one small area that we're working on, which is preschool. And then our next steps is no actions required for Novi Community Schools. So we are also #1, just like general education in the state of Michigan.
So let that sink in a second. I mean, if you go back to the 2011-12, and we see red, 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 and there's an indication of real growth and real attention. And again, I would say that is a focus that the Board of Education in Novi has put on valuing each child in our district. I know that we've seen a rise in, for instance, our parent PAC group that wasn't present at least when I arrived here 9 years ago, and that we see here in a real commitment to serving our students. So it's great to see these pieces. I think sometimes when I know when board members perhaps are out and community members are talking to you, they want to know what can you do for my child in this situation. And at least, again, now you can say that we're making movement. Okay, Mr. Cook.
Two of the big areas I just wanted to point out also were the inside general education classroom, at least 80% or more of the day. That is one of the largest targets, so least restrictive environment, we'll hear the term LRE. And that's something that really is a goal across the state and the country, and we've clearly been able to do that, as well as attending early childhood programs. And so that early childhood piece is beginning to show that movement, which is great
Okay.
as well.
Mr. Cook had a question.
I only see one piece of data that's the most recent school year, 18-19, for secondary transition, which is good. When are we going to have the data for last year's school?
So it's always 1 year behind. So for next spring, we'll get the 18-19 school year data.
Is that because of paperwork at the
That's just how the
Capitol?
state runs their reports. Yeah.
Okay, and then there's one other one here where we did not meet, but it's buried in amongst the other ones, but it's positive social and emotional skills. Could you explain a little bit more on that one?
Sure. So in early childhood, we provide services. I'm not sure that everyone in the community understands that special education services in the state of Michigan start from birth all the way up through age 26. So we have our early childhood components. There are markers that take a look at positive social emotional outcomes, knowledge and use of skills, and use of appropriate behaviors are 3 targets that the state specifically for early childhood takes a look at. That is a process of utilizing some tools that have been provided by the ISD from the district to monitor growth. And really the goal is to see children, the needle move for our early childhood kiddos, so that they're growing in skill development, they're growing in their behavioral development during those years. So that component, that has continued to increase as we kind of hone our skills also at that level, and looking at how the state is monitoring those pieces. There is some subjectivity in some of that, and so we're continuing to work through it. And then over the years, we've continued to see growth and improvement in that. And so we do anticipate that will be met most likely in the next year, if not the following year.
And it's hard to get your head around the fact that when Ms. Theophilus is in birth to 26, think about that. Yeah. So we provide services to families from birth, which, again, this is your area of specialty, so we're so grateful that you've been here and you're in your second year with us, and really your attention to that. But for lay people, it's really, I think, hard to get our head around the fact that we visit homes, that we serve youngsters before they're even in the Novi Community School District, so to speak, but they're within our purview. We're also one of the very few states in the country that actually serves students up to 26. I'm not sure what the number is, Shaylee, but I want to say we're one of a handful that continues to do that. Wow. So imagine if you're a parent and your son or daughter has real needs and the state's done with you at the age of 18. I can't even get my head around that when we see what our families need. So again, I'm grateful that we're in Michigan and grateful that we support our kids up to that age. So thank both of you. I know that your work, each of you, can be very, very difficult. When you work with families, a lot of times you're working with families who are in a very difficult position and place, and that's not easy. I know that oftentimes advocates are involved. There's a lot of emotion and a lot of energy out there around this, and I appreciate the fact that you put our kids first. and are advocates for each one of our children. So thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question about the early on
Yeah.
program. So, who services those kiddos? Like,
Okay, so there has been a slight shift this year. So it's a bit of a complicated system. I lived in that system as a practitioner for a number of years, so that's how my expertise in that area or practice has come in. So there's two groups of students. There's a group of students that meet what we call Part C eligibility. So IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, there's a Part C of the federal law, which is early intervention. And then Part B of the law, which is more of our traditional special education IEP world. In the state of Michigan, because we're called a birth mandate state, we have an overlap of federal law and state law, where most other states, there's a separate entity, like family community health organizations will oftentimes provide that birth to 3 intervention in most states. Because of that, we have a 2-tier system currently in Michigan. So we have students who are at risk for a delay or a disability, and then we have students who are being found to have a disability or a delay. Traditionally in Oakland County, there's been a separate group, separate entity that would provide that service. So all the referrals will come through to Oakland schools to one central place, be screened, and if there was a suspected disability, that referral would go to the local district. If it was just an at-risk, a child, let's say, had low birth weight, or a child, was premature, even though there's no actual documented disability, they're more at risk of having delays. So they would go in this Part C route with county practitioners. The state of Michigan is looking at how do we provide equity of assessments for these students, because we've lived in a system where 2 different evaluation systems have happened, depending on how parents answer questions. So currently, we were given the opportunity last school year. Oakland schools had been provided additional funds from MDE to say, here's additional monies for local school districts to provide those Part C services for our students. So with that, Shaylee and I worked together with the folks at the county, and so we were able to provide additional staffing through county funds and through grant funds through MDE to staff an additional 0.5 speech language pathologist who is servicing our birth to 3 Part C at-risk students and families. And so all of the folks that are in the birth to 3 realm are all Novi employees, which is great. And it's amazing to now have all of our students and children in the community under one system, because we can make sure that we're not waiting too long to intervene more intensely with some kids. When we're in 2 different systems, it can be a bit disconnected at times. So that has been wonderful. We started that, I think, April, May, we were able to do that. And so one of our current speech pathologists who've been in early childhood has taken that role. And so she is working through with that. We have an incredible early childhood staff that works at that level.
So I think that answer and that question is an indication of the complication of special education, right? Yeah. Like when we look at special education, we say, well, why do we need to spend the money we do? That answer was an indication to a very good question of how the depth of the work that is. And for Ms. Minnick, has to really work in tandem with the special education department, because there are also federal monies, state monies, different types of allocations to help offset that high cost of serving our students with IEPs. So thank you to Jill for really being in there and being on top of that. Thanks. And I believe, thank you, Ms. Hoppenstedt noticed a data set that she'd like to share with us as well.
Sure, so I'm going to talk a little bit about attendance. And we don't often look at attendance data, but I think that it's important for us to look at as a factor in achievement. It truly is, because when our students are in our classrooms in front of our amazing teachers receiving high quality instruction, it makes a difference. 95% or more of our students have on-track attendance, and you can see how we compare to like districts and how we compare across the state. So it's clear that our students and families value coming to school and having good attendance. So we have our middle school and high school attendance data. And I would say that, we're fortunate in that we don't have, widespread truancy issues that other districts in the state may have to face. So attendance data is certainly an important factor in our success as a district and the achievement of our students.
Any other questions for Ms. Hoppenstall? Thank you. That is interesting. It's good for us to occasionally look at that. I know we get a data point at the very end of the year, but.
And the wondering Darby had on the high school, if you actually look at the high school, there's a dip. We went from 95 to 92 over a year for attendance, and I think kind of her wondering out loud, and I think the team, as we talked about this, definitely, to Paul's point, is one of those data points that we need to look at. But could that also be an indicator of some of the mental health and well-being issues that we're talking about, where students are struggling staying in the high school or needing to find alternative type of placements just because of the weight of life right now? We're not sure, but that's something that, and I love the fact if you caught this in Adva's presentation, even though there's a 0.1 dip, I mean, she noted it. Why? Because that's my team. I mean, the bottom line here is if we see something coming early, then they're the type of folks who ask questions and want to get after it until we say, oh my God, there's a 10-point drop or a 15-point drop, right? And it's too late then.
Right. Mr. Cook?
Well, my curiosity is, okay, yeah, we're greater than 95%. Do those fall down onto individuals, or is it just a mass? Is it a large population of students that are missing one day, or is there one chronic absence person in there that's causing a blip in it? Yeah, great, we're 95%, but okay.
Who are the five?
Yeah, who are the 5%? And,
Yeah, it's a good question.
why not make it joyful and have 100%? Kids want to come to school.
We would love that.
I wish I had a kid that wanted to come to school.
We would love that. We're going to get there.
Right.
We're going to get there. Give us time.
Thank you.
And we're also mindful that some of our families do take extended
Oh, yeah.
vacations, and
Yeah,
we go
that's
out
the
of the
other part.
country, so that also could impact our data there. So,
That's
Well,
a
we
great-
should be able to pull that data out.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Okay, so in addition to high-quality core instruction and curriculum, we also focus on the whole child. And we provide social and emotional learning opportunities to our students through our second step curriculum. We have trained teachers in trauma-informed training at K-4, and that will continue this school year, 5-12. And we'll also be digging into a little more about secondary trauma that our teachers and our related services and providers and principals may experience as they are working with students who have experienced trauma, and how it may impact them as supports for students. We're proud to say that we trained all of our high school staff in restorative practices just this past August, which was, they spent 2 days, and the feedback was very, very positive in the experience that our high school teachers had. In addition, we are fortunate to have three in-house restorative practice trainers. Ms. Katie Dinkelman, Mr. Andy Kuhn, and Ms. Heidi Orr, who is a social worker at Meadows. And they are able to train teachers, so it's a benefit to us because it reduces the cost of training for other teachers. We have a focus on mental health and well-being. Dr. Orr might want to talk a little bit about his.
So we've had on the mental health and well-being, the delight to see that moving to our strategic plan as a community as well. But looking at just from a parent standpoint and a community standpoint, we've had over 20 meetings in the past 2 years around that, gaining real momentum around there. And I think bottom line, just our commitment to our increase in people who are practitioners for mental health, such as social workers and counselors in our district, is also proof positive. That around mindfulness, second, third, and fourth grade now, every single second, third, and fourth grader in mindfulness is simply coping mechanisms for our students, so learning those earlier, and healthy play through PlayWorks throughout the elementary scope of our district. And the data that's coming back is unequivocal that students who move, it doesn't shock any of us, I know, but we got away from it for some reason. But students who move are just healthier in so many ways. And also when you look at student reading scores correspond as well very much to how much activity they have. So. Yeah, and then on a community support and engagement, family engagement outreach at building and district levels. Just last night, Jill and Gary were at the PTO at Parkview presenting on the bond. In the feedback that Jill and Gary gave was the fact that I will actually give it, from what I understand, highly engaged.
Very. A group of parents asking great questions, wanting information, and not just Parkview information, but district information.
That's fantastic.
A high level of parent guardian participation by school events, conferences, and curriculum nights. Again, the amount of parents that show up today at our inter-school meeting in this room was full. Also, we have great partnerships with community organizations such as the Novi Public Library. Julie Farkas, I think most of you know, fantastic, right on. Novi Youth Assistance, the City of Novi itself, great partners with Novi Community Coalition, PASSN, our Parent Mental Health Committee, and Novi Rotary are all partnerships that we can point to of community members that give into our schools and our systems and see that value there.
I see one missing, RJ.
Which one is CPAC?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so but it was not. I mentioned it earlier. CPAC got its own shout out
Oh,
even
it
before the
did? So we're not in the
presentation.
list?
I'm
We're
just
just
defending
part-
myself
oh,
right now.
right.
It's
You're
okay.
in
It's all
trouble
right.
and you don't want
Fair
to be
enough.
called out on that.
You know what? I gotta own it.
Doesn't hurt,
I
doesn't
gotta
hurt to
own
listen
it.
to
Who
again.
can I fire? I'm just kidding. CPAC needs to be on there. Sorry.
I don't see
The
any.
chair gives me that feeling.
I'm sorry, I noticed that one too. It's just-
NEF as well, the Novi Education Foundation, of course, supporting our things such as, you see, you can't make anyone happy. We're an hour and 15 minutes into busting my tail and nothing
You know
here.
what, it's fantastic. We have so many community organizations.
Thank you, but thanks for the save. Thanks for the save. So let's go to professional learning to hone our Tier 1 instructional practices, and anyone from the Office of Academics who wants to come up and speak to this, I think it's important, because this is, again, part of Dr. Matthews' evaluation, which is tied to the DIP, which means then it's tied to each building principal,
The DIP
each
is-
teacher, the district improvement plan.
Thank you.
So this is something we can reiterate for the board. So Darby, if you would like to be the one, since you're the one standing up there, to take us home on this, or if your colleagues would like to help you and not leave you standing because the board's going to be feisty.
I vote for Darby.
Okay,
There it
sure.
is.
I'll roll. So guided reading, our teachers grades 3 through 6 are going through a robust opportunity around guided reading and oral running records to be able to more accurately identify students' reading level and I spoke about advantage math recovery or AVMR training for grades K2. Restorative practices, I've spoken about that a bit, where we'll be training 5 through 12, and then the secondary training. Writing pathways is, we're continuing that. That's been in our district improvement plan for the last few years, and we're just continuing and helping teachers score writing assessments and be able to, better provide instruction to our students.
And that was what was referenced earlier tonight with the third grade teacher I spoke about. In restorative practices, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that that was initially supported by the Novi Education Foundation a few years ago at the middle school.
Mr. Cook.
What is UBD, UDL?
That's understanding by design and universal design for learning. So that's heavy duty curriculum geek stuff, but really helping our middle school has went through the past few years, and it's taking the units and for the teachers in the room and the teachers who are listening or watching, the issue is the state will often give you 180 standards to cover in a year. It's impossible. Right. So what UBD does is teachers get together and find out what can realistically be covered in a year and covered well, and really starting with that end in mind. So that's UBD and UDL from a DIP standpoint. In Dr. Matthews' evaluation, this is where we allocated Andy Combe to be in Meadows 5-6 and 9-12 to help lead those efforts with our instructional coaches and our building principals.
Okay. And you just mentioned instructional coaches, so that was a great segue.
And then, of course, a robust and aligned district improvement plan, which is the DIP. Thank you. Look at that.
Back to where we started.
All right, back to where we started. So, what does all of this mean? Tonight, I hope, and I appreciate not only your patience, but I'm going to say that we should be patient on nights like this, because this is the core of what we do is serve kids. I am incredibly proud of the people that presented at this podium tonight, of our principals, of our teachers, of my colleagues on cabinet, of Dr. Matthews. I can say that the district that Nitch said was #1 in the state, I can confidently say and back up that that is a legit ranking, that the things that we are doing are making a difference in the lives of our kids, that people are mimicking the work that we're doing around the state, that people look to us as a place that does great things for kids and sees us as a natural leader. The board should take a ton of credit for that, both present board members and past, because I know I personally have asked the board to commit to things that took some faith. And I appreciate that leap of faith there. I hope you feel rewarded tonight. I hope you feel proud to be a citizen here. And I know that I'm exceptionally proud of the people that presented the podium. They're the folks that not a lot of people get to see, who are really making some very, very difficult decisions. Our teaching staff, you gotta be kidding me, with what they've done in the past decade has been absolutely stunning. And everyone that came before them, so thank you, sincerely. And I know that any questions you might have, please direct it myself or anyone else in the audience.
Are there remaining questions? I appreciate that you were able to stop as we went through, because this is a lot of information this evening to really absorb. I know Mr. Smith said his head was going to explode at one point. I think that, it's a lot to digest. I do hope that if the board has questions that come up afterwards, feel free to shoot them to RJ.
Yep.
And he can get back with us on any additional questions we have. And certainly we look forward to hearing more in the future kind of about some of those efforts that you're going through. Look forward to having you come back, all y'all. That would be fantastic. But thank you very much for being here, the thorough presentation and covering all the squiggles and dots and all the acronyms. There's a lot of them. But yes, great discussion and great presentation. And let's go Novi. Let's get to number one in every area, right?
Right on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Next on our agenda is comments from the audience related to agenda items. This is an opportunity for anybody who has something that was on our agenda that they'd like to make a comment on to speak to the board about. We just ask that you fill out a green card that Mrs. Hawley will provide and give it to her so that we know if we need to follow up with anything, we can do that. Is there anyone who would like to speak to our agenda items this evening? All right. Seeing no one, we will move on. Does anyone need a brief break?
No.
No? Okay, just checking. I've sometimes steamrolled through when people needed to do so. So we will move on to the consent items. I would first entertain a motion on our consent items. There are two this evening. The approval of the minutes and approval of the field trips. Routine.
I'll move that the Novi Community School Board of Education approve the consent items as presented.
I'll support. Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Smith and supported by Mrs. Roney. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same. Motion carries 7-0. Next is our action item. This was discussed last week, our school safety operation plans. Dr. Weber.
Certainly. Grab this here.
I just got locked out.
There we go.
Okay.
So our emergency operations plan, section 1380B of the revised school code, addresses school safety and requires schools to develop emergency operation plans and have the board approve them in open session. Specifically, it states the following. Beginning in the 2019-2020 school year and at least biennially thereafter, a school district, intermediate school district, or public school academy shall, in conjunction with at least one law enforcement agency that has jurisdiction over the school district, intermediate school district, or public school academy, conduct a review of the emergency operations plan developed or adopted, including a review of the vulnerability assessment. Not later than January 1, 2020, a school district, intermediate school district, or public school academy shall develop an emergency operations plan for each school building operated by the school district, intermediate school district, or public school academy. The board of the school district or intermediate school district, well, that's a lot, or the board of directors of the public school academy shall adopt the emergency operations plan by a majority vote of the members serving on the board of directors at a public meeting of the board of directors held in compliance with the Open Meetings Act. Let's see, guys. We have developed 11 emergency operation plans for each building in conjunction with our building administrators, school safety committees, and school police liaison officers. And favorite is here. They have been reviewed by the City of Novi and the Oakland County Office of Emergency Preparedness. We believe they are thorough and will serve as a template for us to manage in emergency situations. The plans are being reviewed with each building so that staff knows what to do in an emergency situation. The legislature has created the ability for boards to keep security plans from public disclosure. However, the board must approve the plans in a public meeting. The emergency operations plans have been shared with the board on September 19th, 2019. We will bring a recommendation to the board to accept these plans, and that is exactly what I'm doing tonight. Detective John Zabik of the Novi Police Department and one of our school police liaison officers was here to describe this, I believe, in our last meeting. So the recommendation that I have is the acting superintendent is in the best interest of the district. The Novi Community School District Board of Education approves the 11 emergency operation plans for each building is shared with the Board of Education.
And we did discuss this last time, so we don't need to, unless anybody has a remaining question. All right, I would entertain a motion. Mr.
Yeah, I
Bennett.
move that we approve as stated.
Okay. Is there support?
Support.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Mena and supported by Mrs. Rooney. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
We do not have information and discussion this evening. We felt like we had enough on the agenda with the M-STEP, so we will move on to our second opportunity for comments from the audience. This is an opportunity for anyone to speak to us about anything in our jurisdiction. If there is someone that would like to address the board, the same thing applies. Thank you. If you want to state your name, just make sure you do fill out that green card and give it to Mrs. Oh, you've already done it. Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you. And I will turn it over to you. We do ask you keep your comments to 5 minutes.
Yes. Hello, my name is Sharon Trumpy, and I am the parent of 2 students in the Novi Community School District. My son Cameron is a sophomore at Novi High School, and my son Matthew is a 6th grader at Novi Meadows. My goal for both of my children is that they grow into kind, strong, brave men who help to make this world a better place. I value the excellent academic reputation of Novi schools, but even more, I value the commitment of the teachers, the staff, the administrators, and you, the Board of Education, to ensure that my child and all the children in the school district are learning in an environment that values respect, equity, and diversity. When I visit the classrooms, I see children of all races, ethnicities, and religions learning together. I see teachers who are thoughtful and dedicated to each and every one of their students. Over the years, I have also seen honest missteps, teachers or staff members who have unintentionally said or done things that have hurt our family. You see, my family is multiracial. My youngest son is Black and joined our family through adoption. As his mom, I have made a commitment to speak up, even when it is uncomfortable. And I'm happy to say that each time I've spoken up to a staff member at NCSD, I've been met with respect and an honest desire to learn and improve. I am here tonight, despite my discomfort, because I have shared a concern with my 6th grader science teacher and his principal, which remain unresolved. A few weeks ago, I was excited to meet my 6th graders' teachers at the Meadows Curriculum Night. It was wonderful to see the time and effort these dedicated professionals had put into preparing the learning environment for their students. In the social studies classroom, I saw maps adorning the walls. In the math teacher's classroom, she pointed out a wall which would be dedicated to the math terms her students would learn throughout the year. And of course, the ELA classroom was decorated with information about reading and writing. When I visited my son's science classroom, I noticed that there was a section of the wall with a poster of President Trump, an image of a bald eagle, and In God We Trust. I do not presume to know this teacher's heart, nor will I conjecture as to what her motivation was for decorating her science classroom in this way. I recognize that she is entirely entitled to her own political opinions and her freedom of speech. I do, however, expect all teachers to use their critical thinking skills and to consider not only the intent, but the impact of their words and actions in the classroom. When a teacher chooses what to post in their classroom, I hope that they consider its pertinence to the subject matter and what it may communicate to their students and families. Sometimes this is clear. A math teacher will likely choose to post the times tables rather than the state capitals, as it relates directly to the curriculum he or she is employed to teach. A teacher might also choose to post items that are not related to the subject that he or she teaches, but that align with the district values. An example might be a poster of the 7 habits. When a teacher chooses to post an item that does not relate to their subject or district values, I expect them to consider how this might be interpreted by others. At curriculum night, the science teacher's choice of classroom decorations made me look around the room and wonder, what might this poster say to the Black father sitting next to me, or the family who recently moved to the United States? How might a Muslim student interpret these decorations, or a child with a disability? And what might this say to any child in the classroom about their classmates of color, their classmates who are learning English as a second language, their classmates who celebrate different holidays or wear different clothing? Are these classroom decorations contributing to an environment of learning, or are they distracting from learning? Novi Community School District has students from over 50 countries. The district belief statement says, we believe in an equity of opportunity, a culture of unity, fostering and inspiring a curiosity of learning, a community of well-being. My son's teacher is entitled to her beliefs, which I do not presume to know. All children are entitled to a classroom that makes them feel safe, respected, and equally valued. This teacher's choice of classroom decoration is unrelated to the subject matter she has been hired to teach. Regardless of her intent, her display does not celebrate a culture of unity or a community of well-being. It does not inspire a curiosity of learning. It disrupts learning and decreases educational opportunities for the students and parents who feel silenced. I am asking that you, the Board of Education, reflect upon your duty to all students and families in Novi Community School District, and specifically how you are supporting the school district's stated beliefs of equity, unity, curiosity, and community. I look forward to following up with you at the next Board of Education meeting, and I thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have the acting
Superintendent's
superintendent's
report.
report.
Do we have
Oh.
anybody else?
Oh, we have somebody else who wants to speak? Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Hello, I'm going to try to read this really quickly. My name is Tia Marie Sanders, by the way. Sharon Trump is actually a really good friend of mine. She's also a member of a few other organizations that I'm part of. Because of that relationship, when she first reached out to me about the situation with her son, I was immediately thrust back into 2010. When at the same school, my daughter, who was in 5th grade, had a 5th grade teacher who was stealing money from her and several other students. He did face some charges, but was allowed to come back because of certain laws that existed at that time back into the classroom. My daughter and all those students had to still sit in his classroom day after day for 6 more weeks, knowing that he was the one who had stolen their money. This was terrifying. It was upsetting to my daughter. I'm trying not to get emotional. It was upsetting to her that she had to be in an experience and in a room that made her feel uncomfortable. I reached out to teachers. I reached out to board members. I reached out to principals. Their hands were tied. They told me the best I could do was move my daughter to another classroom because it was her that needed to move. It was her that needed to handle how she was going to feel uncomfortable or comfortable in her day-to-day. Which I had no choice to do, was to move my daughter from her friends, from her normal daily routine, and still walking past the classroom of a teacher who basically made her feel terrified. So when I heard what Sharon said, it was extremely upsetting. In 2014 or 15, that same teacher was charged with some sexual misconduct with some of our current students and some past students, which only made my daughter more upset. She had moved on at that time to the middle school. But this is a different opportunity that all of you have listening to Sharon's story, to not just look at it as it's just one kid, it's just one situation. If we mean what we say when we say what our new motto is and what our new mission is to make sure that all of our kids have great experiences while they're in our school district. And I believe and I know many of you personally that that is your heart, that you don't just dismiss what she says, because I have been the parent of a child, an African-American child in this district, who did not feel like she belonged, who did not feel like she was safe or protected. And it does not go away. She's 20 years old now and a student at Eastern Michigan University, thank God. But that trauma is still with her. And it might not seem like a big deal, but children spend a lot of their time in our schools, and they love their teachers. My daughter loved her teacher, loved him, cried that this situation happened, was upset. we have a really unique opportunity not to repeat 2010 and 2015 and look out after this one child in a very, very different way. So I hope that that's what you do. Sorry for taking up your time, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone else? Thank you.
My name is Heather Burnside, and I just wanted to take an opportunity to introduce myself to the board as the new Novi Education Association president, taking over for Seth Burlow in May, but this will be my first full year in this position. And I just wanted to say that my door is open. I look forward to working with all of you. If you have any questions about anything that comes up, whether it be budget, legislation, PD, new initiatives from the school, whatever it happens to be, I am a teacher foremost and one with some experience, so I would love to have a chat with any of you at any time to talk about anything going on around the district.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Is there anyone else? Okay. Seeing no one, I will turn to the acting
Thank you.
superintendent for his presentation.
So you may have noticed no Gary Kinzer HR report. I think he was probably taking a nap over there because all he's done his team has done for the past 2 months is hustle, hustle, hustle. Dr. Kinzer, how many folks have we hired in the past couple of months here in the district?
Well, I think we have 38 new teachers for the school year, so probably the first hire was in May, so since then.
So that hiring train has been rolling, and thank you very much, Gary, for everything you and your team have done to get us some great teachers. Seeing them in action is just a blast. I know, unfortunately, you're up against the wall a little bit because you have issues with trying to find long-term math teachers and math hires at the high school, and even guest teachers are a challenge. So thank you for everything. I'm glad you had the night off a little bit there. Miss Minnick, the launch has been phenomenal when we look at the things that you're under or over, such as our transportation, buses being on time, getting to stops and so on, buildings being in great shape considering we had carpeting and things like that were going on. Thank you so much. And your leadership of the bond efforts, you did a great job at the high school. You got high school staff to laugh. It was amazing. It was wonderful. About the bond, it was great. We won't say how, but she's got good material. And also Dr. Matthews isn't with us tonight because really we're very fortunate that our superintendent is the MASA president this year, which is a professional organization with 600 superintendents across the state, but he's also the president of the Oakland County Superintendents. So let's leverage that accessibility and what he has there to help our kids and other kids from around the state. So congratulations to Dr. Matthews. And finally, each board member has a little bit of a magazine under their thing. I want to take a look at that. What you may see there is the headline on Novi today here is Inside Cutting Edge, Schools Offering Unique Program for 6th Graders. And on the inside, if you look at page 12 there, you will see a nice middle spread of, again, the very first in North or South America occurring there in that area.
Up close on the camera.
So if you live in Novi, hopefully you'll be getting a copy of this. This is at Novi Meadows. We're very proud of it. And again, thank you for the board's support on that. And that's all I have for mine report tonight. To the board, thank you so much for great questions on our MSTEP piece.
Thank you. Next is our administrative reports. Ms.
Good evening. Thank you, President Murphy. Just one thing to note. Today, the House and Senate passed the school aid budget, and it's been long awaited. At this point, Governor Whitmer may veto line by line, or she may veto wholesale, or she may sign it into law. So there may be some changes coming. Yet at this point, we know that Novi Community Schools at this point stands to have an increase in our foundational allowance of about $120. There are some changes in special education funding, CTE, high school pupils, some that are incrementally small, I suppose, an increase and decrease. But over the next coming days, we'll dig deeper into those nuances of the school budget and learn more about how it will apply directly to Novi schools.
Great. We'll look forward to that. Thanks. Dr. Kinzer.
First of all, I would like to take this opportunity just to say that really the best part about doing HR work is the close connection to academics. And I work every day with our Office of Academics administrators, and as you saw tonight, they are very, very impressive. The quality of work that they do every day really speaks to the kind of programming that we have in this district. And I found the presentation tonight to be very comprehensive and representative of the work they do. So I'm thankful that they had the opportunity to show all of the amazing data and the things that are happening in our classrooms. Also, on Monday evening, we held our first Menti Monday of the year. So in two separate sessions, the first with our new secondary teachers, and then after that, our elementary folks, we focused on educator evaluation. So Andy Combe and Jeff Dinkelman joined me, and we provided an overview. It was really an education, a teach session. And then at our October Menti Monday, we will dig into developing our growth plans and our student learning objectives. So session 2 will be more of a work session, whereas session 1 was a teach session. But it was a great start to our Menti Monday series.
Thanks. And I'm glad you got a little bit of a break too.
Thank you.
I know we still have a few hires out there.
We do.
Rick, so we'll look forward to having a personnel report.
I would expect action at our next meeting.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks very much. Next is an opportunity for board communication. If board members have something that they would like to share with the rest of the board. I don't know if there's been any, the Taste Fest was passed and, there've been a lot of things, but are there other things that the board would like to share with anybody? No?
I have fun stuff, but I'm going to wait till everybody else goes because then we can leave at the end of it.
Oh, okay. Okay. So anybody?
Well, I joined Dr. Matthews at the Band Boosters to talk about the bond there. And so that was quite interesting. And of course, they were pleading for help for the bottle drive, which happened last Saturday. Don't know how successful it was. I know they still have bottles that need to go back. They were pleading with their parents again tonight to pick up bottles. And then I also went to a staff meeting. It was a day early the first time, so there was no staff meeting. But got to meet the secretary. She's wonderful there. I did a dry run, and so the next day I went, and I know it was funny. I laugh at it, but then there were teachers there at this one, which was great. And Dr. Matthews did his presentation on the bond again, but they did and I don't know what it was called, that mingle thing.
Playworks.
Just to watch the teachers, it was just wonderful, and they do their little mingle, and they stop and they talk, and it was great. I mean, and that's obviously something we've implemented, which I've never seen in action, so it was wonderful.
Maybe we'll do it the next board meeting early.
We all need to play.
Yeah, I don't know how to do it quite yet, so I ran, of course, and hid over by the principal, it's like, hi, I'm Marion Roney, it's like, so I didn't have to do it, because I was like, but it looked like they were having a great time. And the next thing I'll bring up is I went to this wonderful kind of event. One of the students that graduated in, I think it was 08, year after my daughter, she graduated in 7. He had some leaders, directors from the temple over here, and we all met at his house with, his parents' house, I should say. Got to learn a lot about the Indian culture, and then we went to the temple, got to learn about that, and then we had some food, which was wonderful. And their doors are always open, so if anybody wants to learn, if we want to do a lunch there as a board or a dinner, it was very interesting. But I do have their, what I'll call their Chex Mix over here, if anybody wants to try it. It's a little spicy though, so, but it was just great. I had a good time learning about their culture and meeting with them, and they're just wonderful people and very hospitable.
Great. Nice.
So.
And there's food involved.
Well, yeah, I'm a wimp, so a lot of it I could not eat. But their mango drink is wonderful.
All right.
So you probably know the name of it. I have. There you go. They were wonderful.
All right. And Mrs. Hood? Did you have something?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, I thought I saw your hand
Well,
up.
now that you have said my name,
Okay.
I just wanted to reiterate my thanks to Dr. Weber's team for putting together all the data tonight, but also so my two boys graduated in 14 and 16, and so when we sit at honors nights, things like that, as someone who isn't in the middle of anything at that time, I think, well, there can't be this much success when, our seniors are, and they're going to these really prestigious universities, or they're doing entrepreneurial things and all that. And at the high school gets a lot of press, a lot of attention for the success of our older kids, our juniors and seniors. But I think tonight's presentations illustrate that we really have things together all the way down to kindergarten. And it isn't a fluke.
Birth, really?
Right.
Preschool.
Right. And it isn't a fluke when we have multiple kids get into the universities that they really want to get into. So anyway, I just want to say thank you, and probably Dr. Weber too. I'll throw a thank you his way too. Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Cook?
Just to throw on to that, the range that we have, I don't know, most of you probably have seen that we had a couple kids on Jimmy Fallon.
That's my show.
Don't steal my show.
Don't
steal the show, Paul.
That's all I'm going to say.
Well played, Mr. Cook.
Okay, well played.
Can I have a turn?
Your turn.
Danielle.
I was just leading into yours.
Oh, okay. That was a good segue.
It was great. So, and I know that Paul's boys are really, really into invention convention. So we had two kiddos, Graham Long and Tyler Parker. They're both from VO, and I got some information from their mom, who I've been to her house because I was transitioning her as the PTO president, and have seen this amazing little invention in the corner. So when it showed up on TV, I'm like, oh my God, it's you'll hear what it is. VO, who organized Invention Convention and helped the kids with this. They moved on, these kiddos moved on from Novi regional competition to the state competition at the Henry Ford. At states, they won the Educators Award. Teachers who attend the workshop basically vote for the inventions. And they won the award across all age groups. Then they moved on to the national competition, also at the Henry Ford. And during the national competition, the producer for this segment of tonight's show was scouting inventions. And she fell in love with the boys. She asked them to submit a pitch video. The show went through a national casting process. They resubmitted their pitch video a couple times upon request. And then the producer pitched it to Jimmy Fallon, and the boys were selected a week ago and had to fly out to New York and do this segment. Someone asked how the Lego thing,
Got there. Yeah.
yes, what is it, the S3?
The SQ.
And the show shipped it out there, but the cool part is at the very end, all the kids, because there was two more inventions by two other kids from other parts of the country, received $5,000 towards their education. So it was great, and I think, Paul's kids participate, so he probably has much more background, but it's really amazing.
Tia Marie actually judges quite often on those, so
You did.
she can probably attest to how difficult it is to decide amongst all the kids that are submitting.
Oh, my goodness. They should have given you a shout out, Tia Marie.
Yeah.
All right,
So
fantastic.
another great thing that Novi kids are doing at all levels.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for the assistance, Mrs. Holly, in pulling that up. That was a good way. That's a good way to end our meeting. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved by Mr. Cook and supported by Mrs. Hood. Oh, by Dr.
Mrs. Hood.
Or Mrs. Hood. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. We are adjourned for the evening. Thank you again for being here.